Hello and welcome to AJM in the AM. I'm Anthony Merrow. We're here for the live stream 100 sub special. I'm here with one of the largest Knicks fans I've ever met. This is my oldest brother. He was born into it. He bleeds blue and orange. Absolutely loves it. Even with the over basically 30 years, well, you could say 20 plus years of just absolute pain. I believe most Knicks fans are masochists, but this is probably one of the biggest masochists there is. How you doing, Jesse?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. Thank you for stopping by to talk about your favorite team. This is going to be great. I think the Knicks are an interesting team, right? Because they have all of these crazy moments of brilliance. We see it consistently. They look like they're crazy fun. They look like they're building towards something great, and then something tragic happens, and it all falls apart. And they're probably the least patient team in the NBA. Second to the new version of the Lakers, where they just have zero patience at all.
For anything.
Yeah, there's no patience. Welcome to the chat, Tim. So where do you see this team going forward? Like, what do you see in this roster now?
Well, with currently as constructed with the Brunson addition, he definitely brings something different to the point guard position. You haven't seen a player like him playing on the Knicks in quite some time, actually. You're looking at a guard who, in all honesty, is very good at slashing to the basket. He has a very nice step back, and he does a nice little fadeaway, especially on that little wing. It's going to force the Knicks to kind of move other parts because, in all honesty, those positions where he likes to take his shot is in the same position where Randall kind of likes to operate at the same time. But in those positions, they can run a very mean pick and roll. So that does have some promising potential. And the both of them are decent 18-foot jump shooters, especially when Randall doesn't feel that pressure or ends up getting into that double trap where he falls into the corner. So it can be interesting. He is undersized.
Yeah,
and
6'1".
This team and the way the coach plays defense, especially at the point guard position and how he has them moving about, it's going to be a lot for him on the defensive end. He's going to have to definitely lock in and focus in. But also, with them having Cam Reddish available, let's see if he finally gets some playing time, because in all honesty, we didn't see much of him last year. But you can see how him and RJ play together very well off ball and moving the ball and definitely pushing the tempo. And they both are good wing defenders, so they can kind of compensate for that lack of size that Brunson does bring in if they decided to utilize all three of them in the backcourt.
RJ and Cam will be able to assist in covering up the defensive shortcomings of Brunson. But you brought up his offense, which is kind of where he gets his bread and butter, right?
Yeah.
He's an underrated passer. This is a guy, I believe when Luka didn't play, he averaged almost 7 assists a game.
Yeah.
This is a guy who shoots 50% from the field despite being an undersized scorer. He has a dominant Euro step. His Euro step's probably like top 3 prettiest in the NBA. And he's crafty around the basket.
Yeah.
But his size is obviously the biggest attraction. People didn't like I was one of the biggest detractors of the contract, but it's front loaded, which makes me feel more confident about it. I know we talked about it off of this a lot negatively, but the Knicks had a lot of money to spend this season, and they threw most of it towards this 4-year deal that they gave him. Almost $28 million this year. It's 26 or 20, almost 25 next year, and then almost 25 the year after that. But that's when the new CBA hits, which will explode the cap. We saw it happen last time. It jumped by like 30%. So if it jumps again, that will look like one of the cleanest contracts in the NBA. Pairing him alongside Randall could make a mean pick and roll game. I just don't see the Knicks capturing that top defensive seeding again that they had 2 years ago.
That team 2 years ago, first of all, people forget that Elfrid Payton started a lot of those games for the Knicks.
He's a phenomenal defender.
Him on defense, he would sometimes play even up to 80 feet of defense throughout the game.
Yeah.
And he would start tiring out the other point guards. You would start seeing them making mistakes. He got in Chris Paul's head a couple of games in different matchups where he was being very pesty with what he likes to do, applying that three-quarter court pressure and definitely forcing them out of their comfort zones. He was really good at that. And that helped on the other end because all of that extra motion led to turnovers and passing mistakes on point guard's play when he was on the court. And he doesn't get a lot of credit for that. But offensively, he was liability. Obviously, you could see it. Even at the free throw line, he was constantly struggling to really put baskets in. But on second-hand chances, he was pretty good, especially coming when he rolled off the sides. When he does his pro play coming off the baseline, he was effective in some possessions. But that means such a massive difference for why that team was so much better defensively than the following season. Because now that you've lost him, and then you don't have a healthy Derrick Rose, and then you have a player playing out of position for most of the season where he's playing smaller guards or larger players, and he's in that tweener phase going through, it really disrupted. And he's more of a catch-and-shoot player anyway. So for this season, he was given way too much of a load in that capacity, and it affected the Knicks on the defensive end. But RJ Barrett played good defense individually.
Yeah.
He was consistently guarding and creating disruption to elite shooters in the league this year. Randall got abused almost all year long, in all honesty, especially on the low block.
That's part of what, like, the confidence thing that just kind of hit him. He balled out last year. Obviously, the playoffs were left a lot to be desired, getting dismantled by the Hawks in 5 games, and he played poorly. A lot of it was attributed to the fact that he didn't play at the All-Star level that put the Knicks at a 42-30 record that got him an All-Star berth. That, what was it, 23 points, 11 boards. He finished the season on 24 and 10. He had a phenomenal year, and then he closed it out basically like with a whimper. And part of it was obviously like going into confidence. First off, going into your first playoff series ever, you're playing against the uber confident Trae Young. He's notorious for taking hearts. If you don't have that wherewithal to deal with it, you kind of can't.
Yep.
Not to mention, and this is why I'm always critical of Thibs, being played that much shows a lot of your hand already. So you don't have a lot left over in the tank, both in your gas tank as well as tricks that you can't really display. Oh, this is brand new. I haven't seen this yet. This is a new style of play that he hasn't shown all season, where I've seen this guy play for 40 minutes a night, every single night. This is everything that he has. He has nothing left to give, so we know what to prepare for.
That is the knock on Tibbs, where it's his inability to kind of really restructure how he's pursuing the game. And you would think, being he's a pop student, correct? He started in the school of Popovich. I
believe so.
You would think that he would be more open to evolution in terms of his system. His defensive schematics are genius, and it's proven. Everywhere he goes, the teams immediately become one of the best or top defending teams in some category, if not multiple categories across the season. But his offensive schematics the NBA's evolved past these points, and he does need to figure out where the middle ground is for this team, because you can't be this super defensive team in the NBA anymore. You're extracting too much energy, where these teams are now, even how great you play defense, these guys are making incredible shots.
Yeah, so the offense is so far ahead.
Exactly. So the offensive game is so much more fluid. It's you have to pick and choose, and he has to definitely release the throttle a bit on the defensive end and allow the Knicks to constantly run. This team is young. They are large in multiple positions, and Brunson's going to thrive in an open court.
Yeah,
he's gonna actually get possessions too in the open court, especially because RJ likes to run, Cam Reddish likes to run, Mitchell Robinson likes to run. These guys are definitely athletes in that capacity, where they're running and sprinting up and down that court.
For Thibs, he's kind of aged out from being basically a head coach at this point. He hasn't evolved himself to adjust to what the game has become. It's a combination of really advanced offensive sets, the ability to kind of like pace yourself on the defensive end, or play a really aggressive style of defense like we saw the Celtics play, like the Warriors did in this postseason. And while he does kind of keep a really aggressive style on the defensive end, he really has fallen in love with half-court sets and one-on-one sets. That's a 10-year, 20-year-old strategy. Now we have all these pin downs. We have a lot of off-ball action that he just hasn't caught up to at all, which is a big detraction for him. Not to mention, obviously, the amount of minutes he plays his starters. Thibs is like a culture setter. He's a guy who, like, you can put him into a young roster, create a culture with that, teach these kids, this is the work that goes into playing in the NBA, but you can't keep him there past that, because we've seen him do that. We saw it with Chicago. He came in there, he set a culture for a very young team. They became amazing, and then he overstayed his welcome, leading to multiple injuries and really short careers for star players like Rose, like Luol Deng, and Joakim Noah. He did it again in Minnesota. Thankfully, they kicked him out early. They got him out of there rather quickly, right? Was it 2 years, roughly?
Yes, but that also, Jimmy Butler had a big part to play in that. He did, but Jimmy Butler called it out. He was like, these guys aren't working as hard as they need to be. Yes.
And like, I shouldn't be the oldest person here working harder than these 20-year-olds, which is also a detriment to Thibs. Then he goes to New York, sets the culture. They have a phenomenal year, but then he overstays his welcome one more season, and now they have a down year. So do you want to see them flip him potentially this season? Obviously, we all love Mark Jackson. I know you love Mark Jackson. I'm a big Mark Jackson fan too. Would you like to see them replace Thibs with somebody else? It doesn't have to be Mark Jackson. It could be anybody else on the back burner.
Right now, there are so many new coaches that are up and coming. There's nobody that you can really find. There's nobody you can really find right now that I think can replace Thibodeau in the league for the Knicks. That doesn't make them worse. You understand? So any scenario with the Knicks are making a downgrade in some capacity, because all the elite coaches are locked in. Let's be very honest. You have to find some miracle new entity or someone you're willing to who's that prodigy. And look, that takes time too. And the Knicks have been irrelevant for so long, and the roster that they have assembled now with all these multiple contracts and seasons moving forward, this team is locked in. They're at near or just by the cap, if I'm not mistaken. So they've got a little wiggle room, but not enough to remodel this team at multiple positions unless they do something massive.
Well, they have a lot of expiring contracts. Like the Derrick Rose is a 1-and-1, but the second year is a team option. I believe it was Alec Burks, but they traded him too, right? They moved Alec Burks,
which I was sad to see because he if anybody, he earned the right to stay.
He played hard.
Yeah, if anybody, he had the right to stay.
So our guy Drunk here in the comments just said we need to move Randall ASAP. And Thibs is the starter pack of Pokemon cards. They need to move on to an advanced pack, which is basically what I'm saying. I think he's really good for a foundational piece. But you make a good point where what is the replacement? There are other people. I think you can find a lot of these previous players are doing a phenomenal job. Ime Udoka just came out as he came from the School of Pop. Yeah. He was an assistant coach. He moved up. But you can find these other assistant coaches that seem to be doing a good job. We're going to see what Darvin Ham becomes in LA. We saw Tyronn Lue come out. I don't even think he had an assistant coaching job prior to that. He just became a head coach, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, but Tyronn Lue, late in his career, and even when he was playing for Orlando, he spent a lot of time with the clipboard in his hands on the sidelines, too, through injury. And then later in the end of his career, same thing, and then playing with Cleveland.
Does Sam Cassell have a head coaching job right now?
No, he's playing. Last I saw, he was playing behind Doc Rivers, if I'm not mistaken.
So, like, Sam Cassell would be a phenomenal pick. I would love to see him get a head coaching position.
Cassell.
That's a guy who's played every aspect of basketball, and he would be, I think, a step up from what Thibs. And he played as a star. He played as a role player, a bencher, a deep bencher, a vet, and then became assistant coaching around the league.
On that Timberwolves team.
Didn't he won also on the Rockets. You have championship experience.
He has his ring.
This is a guy that I think would fill in potentially for anybody, but I think he'll be a solid replacement for Thibs because he's also well respected.
Yeah.
This is a guy that goes out there that everybody's like, oh, that's Sam Cassell. You better listen.
Yeah.
He's like, he has that Chauncey Billups-esque aura around him.
Yeah.
But I do want to ask, because I agree. I think Randall, if he doesn't overcome anything maybe halfway through this season, would you want to trade him?
Okay.
The hard part is, what do you do? That's an albatross contract.
Yes, but it's not immovable. It's not atrocious because Randall puts up numbers. His efficiency is in question, absolutely. But you're also looking at a power forward who's better on the catch and shoot or being set up where he has to do one or two moves very quickly. Think like Amari Stoudemire in Phoenix, how they would get him the ball on that block, and then he would either slash in or get that little floater up or that little drop step. And then that evolved to him hitting that 15 and then 18-footer. He has that potential and that ability to do so if he's being set in the right motions, and he immediately goes into his move. When he buys his time, he drives me insane because it's the same 3 or 4 motions and the defense is in his face. So it makes it very difficult. It makes it hard on himself. He's constantly having to take that fade away instead or double step back and then not being squared up and in rhythm like he needs to be. So I don't know. And who do you get for he's 23 points a game. So who are you trading him for and who's moving him? Who wants him? You have to look at that. The only teams that would look for someone at his abilities right now, who's looking for that tweener.
The Knicks dropped the ball with the Pacers trying to sell. The Pacers selling Brogdon for pennies on the dollar. They took a rubber band and a stapler for Brogdon to the Celtics, which is crazy because the Knicks have the picks. The Knicks have the assets.
Over Brunson.
I would trade Randall. You obviously have to package him with picks because no one's taking that. It's $100 million for the next 4 years. Nobody's taking that contract for free, right? Like I'm not getting something back. This is less of an asset, more of a deterrent. So you trade for that. You take that on board. You potentially get a Miles Turner. You potentially get a Malcolm Brogdon. Maybe you get both. You pack 2 first picks and a second rounder with Randall. Now you have the money to match, and you bring those 2. Maybe an expiring contract, maybe like that Derrick Rose contract. That might be a palatable deal, but they already missed the boat on that.
Yeah.
So now you got to find a sucker, which I think everybody's kind of on edge with being suckered out of a deal since that Timberwolves fiasco. Let's go back to the comments. Drunk states Randall attitude is hurting the progression of the team. Move Randall to start.
Randall does have an attitude and it drives me crazy. But here's the other thing that he doesn't get respect for. When Randall's on the court, he's the best Knick. So every time he's coming down with the ball or he has the ball, he has the best defender or the best defensive scheme set to stop him. Now that Knick roster last year had a bunch of slashing players who couldn't create on their own. RJ Barrett in the open court absolutely can. But when it's on a half-court offense, he needs multiple screens or to be in those give and go scenarios before RJ Barrett really starts committing to plays and being effective. Because every time he was going in this year, he was getting immediately trapped into that center position in the paint and trying to drop that floater, and he was not consistent with it. So it affected how the Knicks played, and it affected the rotation. If he started hitting that floater, they can collapse further in, and that allows Randall open for that second kick out, and then we can get the game moving. But Randall's over here getting double teamed in most possessions, or if you're literally seeing the best defender on the other team nightly, and he's a B. He's your Robin. He's not Batman, but he's getting Batman level defense as Robin. So he doesn't get enough credit in that capacity on what the Knicks went through last season.
Another thing too, Bobby Marks, I'm not sure if you saw it, but back in April, Bobby Marks did a breakdown for all 30 teams, and the Knicks one was more interesting than most. He was explaining a lot of Randall's, advanced stats throughout his career, and everything was pretty consistent, like 38% mid-range shooter with high efficiency around the basket, et cetera, et cetera. But last year, he had a really high uptick. It went from like 38% to like 50-something% with the mid-range, like the entire range, like 5 feet to 15 feet, 18 feet. He was hitting them at a really high clip. And a lot of it he was explaining was the playmaking around him. He was able to get fed in these positions that assisted in his growth, as opposed to this season where Derrick Rose goes out and the offense tumbled right afterwards.
You see the immediate drop-off without Derrick Rose handling the ball immediately. But that also goes to Mike Woodson's schematic, because when Mike Woodson was there, Randall was put on the low block, where then he has his back to the basket and he can then choose to go baseline, or he can slash into the center where he's effective with his left hand, and he's coming in from the right, from this side. So when he was doing that, it opened up two different moves for him immediately. It was, which one is open, and I'm taking that one. And that allowed him to be more effective the previous season. And he also had some lucky bounces, and be very honest, he hit it that fadeaway.
Yeah, he had some lucky,
back
he had
on
some
the
lucky
baseline
touches.
shot that 2 years ago, that fadeaway fell for him on those 50-50 balls.
Yeah.
Last year, he probably got 20% of those 50-50 balls last year. A lot of double ring outs for him, bounce outs,
that regression to the mean
around. It was just that little difference, and that did change his overall success last year. By the way, we're doing Knick Talk, so I figured you didn't have any Knick gear, so I brought.
I don't have any Knick gear.
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm getting my first Knick jersey since I was a child.
Well, this is my Crawford.
Oh,
so
okay. All right, I gotta wear a Knick jersey. Oh man, all right, here we go.
I figured, you can't do Knick Talk.
I feel like you're trolling me.
No,
all right, so Jamal Crawford, to be fair, is a fire jersey, but I'm gonna rock it like it's 2003. Let's put it on backwards. Let's put it on backwards.
Crawford is one of my favorite Knicks of all time.
He was the most exciting, and we're actually gonna get into that right now. This is perfect because I didn't have a segue to do it. I was gonna keep going backwards in time, till we got there. But I used to love watching the Knicks. The Knicks used to be one of the most exciting. And let me get my mic back because I can't tell how quiet I am. But the Knicks used to be one of the most exciting teams to watch in the NBA. During that Stephon Marbury, Marty Collins, you had Nate Robinson flipping J.R. Smith into the crowd.
Yeah,
you had Jared effing Jeffries always messing things up. You had excitement from David Lee. Back then, the team wasn't good, but they played their asses off on a daily basis. They went out there and balled out for their fans, and that's why a lot of people didn't hate the players. They hated the management. They never hated the players. Even Marbury at his worst day, where he was chowing down Vaseline and having mental breakdowns on TV because they were replacing him with Chris Duhon, he still wasn't getting booed.
Nope. I was there for the first game when D'Antoni starts, and he's in the program. He's listed as healthy and available, and they started Chris Duhon for, 47 minutes of the 48-minute game. The Guardian was chanting, "We want Marbury" for that entire game. I was there for that.
The fans loved him. And to be fair, Marbury did a lot, not just for the city, for the team. He did a lot for the community with making the Starberry sneakers, all those little things that kind of make a difference as a star player. I had mad pairs of Star. I loved them. But that era of Knick basketball was probably the most exciting that I've ever seen. Even the games were close. They would lose them a lot, but a lot of them were pretty close. You had Eddie Curry banging corner threes over the Bucks.
Yeah.
You had Mo Williams putting on probably the biggest show on earth against the Knicks every time they played.
Quentin Richardson killing you for 3 quarters, and then in the fourth quarter he's gonna hit 9 points in 10 seconds.
That was Q-Rich, and that was an exciting era. But it led from that into just another decade of just disappointment, because you pick up Amari Stoudemire, who brought excitement back to the Garden, like legitimate stardom back to the Garden. Remember when he had I think he set the record or claimed close to it with 30-point, 10 rebound games in a row. For the Knicks. I think it was 9. He tied it. 9 or 8. He had a phenomenal one. Let's get to Kenny really quick. The Knicks right now Well, they took Brunson from the Mavs. Yeah, he's a Mavs fan. Structured a smart contract. They def got to get Obi and a few others more floor. The Mitchell rumors died fast.
Well, Danny Ainge is literally asking for way too much for this player. Donovan Mitchell is fantastic. He is a top 10 or 15 talent, depending who you ask, in the league, but he's not a top 5 talent to be requesting.
That's
7
crazy.
picks plus prospects plus current players. Not worth it. Absolutely not worth it.
I want to know what the trade negotiations were like when it came to getting Gobert. I want to know, like, did they just say, yes, I'll take it? But did Danny give them an offer, say, hey, I've received this offer from another team and I want to give it to you? What happened in that conversation?
Danny Ainge sold the living mess out of the Defensive Player of the Year awards that Gobert had and said, do you understand what this means? And literally walked in. I had to check and look up. I thought David Kahn was back. So as soon as I saw this trade,
Me too.
I could not believe it, and I had to Google who is the GM and president for the Timberwolves. So I was like, okay, so it's not Kahn, so this is not a joke. This was a legit. He fleeced them. I don't know what he sold them on. I don't know in whose mind does adding Rudy Gobert to that Timberwolves team make them a finals contender.
At the cost of everything they gave. Like, I think adding Rudy Gobert to a team makes you better. But at what you gave up makes no sense. You lost Malik Beasley, who was giving you 17 a night.
Yes.
You lose Patrick Beverley, who's giving you 10 a night and amazing perimeter defense on a team devoid of it.
I am team IQ. He doesn't get enough credit for his offensive IQ. He's all over the place.
And he's a battery pack guy. He's a guy that puts the battery in the back of every player on your team. He makes, he doesn't get enough. I hate Patrick Beverley because of his antagonistic role in the NBA. He's literally, if you're not on his team, he hates you. And he's going to play like he hates you.
He's going to play as dirty as the rules allow.
Yes, but if he plays on your team, you love him. The city loves you. He's a guy, and I hate it when people got mad at him for getting excited for getting the Timberwolves to the playoffs. That's a guy showing emotion. Like, hey, I succeeded in doing something.
This is how he plays, so his exuberance at the end of the game is fitting because he plays like with that energy all game long.
And you lose that. Yeah. Like, I've never seen Rudy Gobert get that excited for anything. No. He has more accolades, more awards. He's never been that hype for anything. Yeah. You know, they beat John and the Timberwolves last season, or the year before last season, in the first round. He wasn't hype. He was like, cool, second round. Yeah, this guy wins a playing game, and they're acting like it's a championship. That's heart. That's love for the game. That's a level of commitment that you're not going to get from other people, and you just traded it.
You got rid of it.
With 5 firsts. I think they have one swap in there.
But they've mortgaged their future. The amount that they mortgage their future on says this is a win now move, and it's not. It doesn't bring win now energy or potential to that team to me. D'Angelo Russell had a regression last year. He's still learning to play through the injuries he's accumulated at this point. His consistency has always been a problem. He's very streaky, and now he's into playing a system where he has to make his touches count. And this is a guy who needs to get warm-up shots and get warm-up into rhythm. But at the same time, who is this gentleman? The small forward for Minnesota. Edwards, excuse me, thank you. He is incredible, and he's going to compensate for a lot on that team, and he's going to be their best player. So and now you're looking at a front court where you have Anthony Edwards, you have Karl Anthony Towns, and Rudy Gobert. That's a three-headed monster on the defensive end and on the offensive end now, because now you can kind of space them out, and Rudy Gobert is a trash man now. So all he has to do is look for putbacks that Karl Anthony Towns is going to have wide open lanes for you anyway, because I have to stretch the defense another 28 feet. That is true. They have a lot of potential for what they can do with it. It's just spending that much on what we just defined as a trash man. You traded away, and not to mention they just got rid of Jared Vanderbilt, who basically filled that role. He did that role already. He was the guy that grabbed offensive rebounds and did a lot of the dirty work for the Wolves. It's just unfortunate that you have to trade that much. But then it leads to the Donovan Mitchell thing. I think Donovan Mitchell will be phenomenal on the Knicks. I just don't think he'll be phenomenal on the Knicks if they trade literally every asset they have to get him. Yes. They're making the same mistake they did with Melo. Yes, absolutely. And with the pieces in this trade being talked about have significantly more upside than the pieces that were released for the Melo trade. Wilson Chandler was a loss. Absolutely. You weren't going to get equal value for Wilson Chandler based on his skill set at that current time. And really say it, he was the best player the Knicks traded away. Wilson Chandler in that Melo trade.
I thought Gallinari was.
Gallinari was up there too, but Gallinari was coming off of that knee injury and was wildly inconsistent. He's gotten so much better in Atlanta, don't get it wrong. he's actually opened up his game. I think it was his stint in San Antonio that really opened him up.
No, it was the Clippers. The Clippers did a great job with him.
But they always kept him on that perimeter, always looking for the three. He's allowed to maneuver in Atlanta, and he cuts to the basket, and he's very good when he does that.
Now he's going to have that as a severe, deep backup for the Celtics.
But now you're looking at those two players. Those were the two major pieces the Knicks lost, plus they mortgaged all the draft picks in the future and totally ruined themselves in that capacity. Fine, but those are that's the Chauncey Billups price. Because don't forget, he came over too.
That's true.
So now you're looking at Grimes, who is a great 3-and-D. He's got the right size, right attitude. He fits in. He's a plug-and-play player. He fits in any system on any team. If you really see what he does, he can play 92 feet of defense, one-on-one, and he can play, even though he's 6'6", he can guard up to players 6'8" and 6'9". I've watched him do it. He's stronger than he looks. He's jumpy. He's got a lot of potential in that capacity. He's definitely a player with very high upside, and he's going to benefit any team that he touches. And then the other one they're talking about is Obi Toppin. And while he started last season awkwardly, I've thought of him as Bambi running around the court sometimes, the way he was operating the first half of the season, like the first 30, 40 games. And then, I don't know, game 55, 56, he started stringing it together, and you could see it. He became more consistent. He started relaxing on his jump shot. He was focused too much on his form and trying to snap, and he got more fluid, and he started putting the ball up as opposed to aiming.
His trajectory reminded me of, and obviously different caliber of player, but when Blake Griffin started taking that midi, and his midi was atrocious, it was just the ugliest mid-range shot, but he was taking it. He was learning how to shoot. But this guy, Obi Toppin, was shooting from three, and he was learning how to shoot threes. And then over the course of the season, over the course of a year and a half, basically, he figured out his form. He figured out what worked for him, and that opened up his game because he's a freak athlete.
Yes.
It allowed him to get to the basket. Now you got to respect me as I shoot this, so you got to close out.
And I'm faster than I look. And
crazy first step.
He's explosive, and at his size, it's going to be great as long as he can stay healthy. He's going to be his upside is very, very high. So he's still a lottery pick if you think about it. He's still
exactly.
A top 10 pick.
He is,
right?
And he has top 10 talent. I think he finished the second half of the season scoring like it was like 20 a game, 8 rebounds.
His efficiency was last season, especially the last 15 games of the season last year. He was very strong. Absolutely, he was consistently the best Knick in certain runs. Whenever the Knicks were making these runs, first off, the Knicks last year with going up 18, he was a big part of a lot of those moments and a lot of those points in the game. And then they would sub these out, the bench players, and then put back in Randall and put back in the starting unit, and they couldn't maintain it. And next thing you know, all that energy is gone. We're now down 20, and now we can't get back. And that was a lot of last year. But on those offensive runs where the Knicks were looking great, Obi Toppin was involved in a lot of those plays, pushing the tempo, getting into the middle of the court, which has become the new phenomenon with everybody taking threes. The ball gets passed around midcourt a lot more often now than it used to. And those passes are getting picked off, and he's one of those key players in playing those defensive zones where he's very effective. So he doesn't get enough credit for that, and it's his limited amount of time, which is why the problem is how do you pair him and Randall together? They occupy the exact same space, and they both are better rebounding on the run, not boxing out and looking for the ball. Where Randall should really be excelling with his size, he doesn't do it. It drives me crazy.
So the Knicks have probably the deepest amount of assets outside of Oklahoma City. They have good young talent, RJ, Obi, Grimes. I like Jericho Sims. I think he's going to be a really good rotation player eventually.
He is a freakish athlete.
Yeah, he's a freak athlete. His burst of speed, his burst like going into the air, his bounce. He has good hands, and I think the hands are really underrated. His hands are phenomenal.
Yeah.
And it's crazy to say that, but it makes a lot of sense when you think about the context of like Rudy Gobert, who probably has the worst hands in the NBA, where he just like fumbles the ball consistently. What would you be willing to give up to pick up Donovan Mitchell?
My Donovan Mitchell trade for the Knicks. Mind you just said everything great. Sims is fantastic, and
I love Sims.
He has amazing upside. But we've just locked in Mitchell Robinson, who's prone to injury, but we've locked him in. And
4 years, 60
million.
million.
If you're making a move for Donovan Mitchell, you need players who are not also learning at the same time. They need to be able to bring some consistency down. So I would definitely offer Sims in this capacity and offer him forward. I would absolutely be willing to part with him. I would hate to let Quentin Grimes go. I really, really would, but then that 100% opens up Cam Reddish in the rotation. But if I'm looking at Cam Reddish and Quentin Grimes, and I'm looking at both of them, there's a reason why two teams are not letting Cam Reddish play. So that tells you something. Two different systems where they see something in him when he's operating in practice and what he's doing behind the scenes that we as fans don't get to witness. Because when you do see him on the court, the potential is immediate.
Yeah.
The energy is there. He's always around the ball or hovering around the play. He's really good at getting involved even without being a part of the focal part of the offense. So it makes you wonder what's going on the other end. But I would kind of let Utah decide. I would literally hype him up. If So you ask me, he's got more potential than Grimes, but Grimes is more NBA ready right now.
Yeah.
So, and Grimes, again, is a plug-and-play player. He can do 15 minutes on any team in the league right now and be consistent. You know what you're getting out of him. And he can guard probably about 40 or 50% of the starting wings in the league right now. So he's definitely up there. And you're gonna give him 15 minutes. You're gonna have some fun with him.
So, but would you prefer to trade? What I'm hearing is you would prefer to trade Reddish over Grimes.
Yes.
Okay.
I would. Right now, yes.
It's only a 1-year contract too, so if the worst case scenario for Utah, they have an expiring deal, they can let him walk, or they can use him as a sign and trade piece for another team.
For another piece.
Yeah. So, all right. So we have Cam Reddish, we have Jericho Sims.
Yes.
Who else would you add in there?
If I have to now,
you have to put cap filler, because you're looking to match $30 million.
Well, then I'm looking. I need to. In all honesty, I'd put Randall on the board and see what else. What other pieces does Utah have at the moment?
Utah still has Bogdanovich, which you would have to take.
Yeah.
I think you would probably take that because that's an expiring deal.
He wasn't the one I wanted. The other one,
they have.
He just signed with somebody else.
Royce O'Neal.
No, power forward. He just signed with. I want to say with Toronto or with Indiana. I don't know. Either way, he just signed out.
Clicking.
Utah doesn't have any other real pieces I really want outside of Donovan Mitchell. So you'd have to. If it has to be contract for contract match, then I'd put Jericho Sims and Randall. And a pick.
Have one pick.
Well, they want 5.
Well, what they want is astronomical. What they want, nobody. Kenny brings up Fournier. That's
Fournier's contract.
Fournier.
Yeah,
it's 19 million a season. Although for the next
Fournier,
3.
He worked himself on me. Like my brother knows I hated this.
Oh, he hates Fournier.
I hated this.
He hated Fournier.
And for I don't know, 36 games, Fournier was consistently the worst Knick on the court. It wasn't even close. Not even close. In a season where everybody's bad, he was the worst. And then out of nowhere, he started hitting a couple of threes. And then he had a good run where he was hitting 4 or 5 threes in a game very consistently. And then he became automatic. And his defense near the end of the season got better. He will never be a good defender, but at least he's applying himself. Because the first half of the season, he was Matador. He would just literally let the defender blow right past him and let Mitchell Robinson deal with him. And then Mitchell Robinson having to do this, constantly getting in foul trouble.
Yeah.
So
when you got to cover stuff.
Was atrocious, but he had a better finish to the season. But his contract should be very movable right now. In all honesty, if you really think about it, he finished the season in the top 5 in 3-point percentage, if I'm not mistaken. Fournier, he was up there.
Yeah, he drills threes at a pretty high rate. I think he's had the Knick record for most threes in a season. Yeah. So he's a phenomenal shooter. It's just he's also very streaky, which can be annoying because you can have a night where he'll have like a Duncan Robinson 1 for 8, and then the next day he'll be 4 for 4.
Yeah,
which is super annoying to deal with. Consistency is always better. And so Kenny brings up a player I don't think you've seen yet, Victor Wembanyama. He's like a Filipino.
Yes, I've heard of this kid.
He's gonna be the next number 1 overall pick. We can watch some videos of him. He's phenomenal.
Crazy long arms and length.
Yeah, he's a 7-footer. I don't know exactly how tall he is, but he's incredible. The guy he's an absolute monster. We can watch some footage of him later. But we were talking about all these Knick draft picks, which brings up the frustration of the Knicks never wanting to really build through the draft, especially since they've done a pretty good job with their picks for the most part. Outside of Kevin Knox, outside of Frank Ntilikina, I put that firmly on. I can't think of his name. Phil Jackson, who just did a horrific job as a GM. Obviously, one of the greatest coaches of all time. You can argue probably the greatest, but
arguably one of the worst presidents of all time.
I probably up there, literally up there. You could be an all-time great and still be drafted at another job.
Yep.
We saw Michael Jordan fail consistently at being an owner, right? So now we're seeing the same thing with Phil Jackson, who literally was booted out by the franchise that apparently adored him. Only thing that would have been worse if he got kicked out by the Lakers, but
he almost burned that bridge.
He almost burned that bridge too. However, picking Kevin Knox before. What was the list we had? We have a list of players.
Kevin Knox, Bam Adebayo. How do you not have them in the same room?
That was Ntilikina.
Oh, that was Nilly?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Kevin Knox got picked. I think it was 8th.
Oh, yes.
9th was Mikal Bridges, Miles Bridges, who actually is probably not a good pick anymore now that he's going to be arrested, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who was one of the max contracts from that draft class.
And these guys all came off the board immediately after him.
Literally, consecutively after this guy, they all came off the board. Atrocious.
You know what made me? At first I couldn't understand how Kevin Knox got through, but then I saw it in a being a Super Knick fan watching MSG After Hours when they do those behind the scenes. They were interviewing one of the scouts who was present when I think it was still Phil Jackson, right? Phil Jackson was talking to other coaches at a combine or at a player's demo, and you have the Kentucky coach Calipari tell him this guy is the future. You want him, sold him. said, with your pick number, this is the kid you want at that position, at that pick, and sold him to the Knicks. So Phil Jackson said it was a no-brainer. Calipari's not going to lie to me, and gave us this lemon that is Kevin Knox.
Now on Detroit for 2 years, $6 million.
I can't believe that. Actually, I'm not surprised. Because Kevin Knox is still 6'10". He's still a natural athlete. He just has zero heart or drive in any capacity. If you ever watch him, he's very sluggish. He's sad. He's melancholy when he's playing.
He's so frustrating to watch because he's not good. He just doesn't have. I don't know whether it's. I know like sports and psychology go hand in hand right now. Like it's been proven at this point where if you're, what is it called? Confidence isn't there, you're not going to play well. Maybe it's his confidence. Maybe his confidence got shot. Yeah. You know, you have a couple of bad games in a row and you just can't get over it. You don't have a veteran to teach you.
A couple of games for him has been a couple of seasons.
Well, exactly. It's been too long. But also, I saw some of his summer league highlights. His first season when he got drafted, his summer league was phenomenal. He looked like, wow, this guy actually has a lot of talent. Draining mid-rangers because his form looks good. Yeah. It's just his accuracy is horrible. And we saw it progress as like he just continuously got worse. Let it rain, just yeeting shots off the backboard, and it just looked horrible. And that was what was picked before Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, McHale, and Miles.
Take these poor shots. You watch him miss these poor shots. It's what you're looking for in the player is the energy afterwards, the focus. And him, he was like, and then I'm gonna try it again anyway and chuck up another dumb one. Give me about 40 seconds, and this is what he was doing. And no. I can't. That was one of the worst picks I've seen. The only one worse was Jordan Hill. I could not believe that that's the pick that we get. One person picked after Stephen Curry is Jordan Hill.
And we just and we watched like a whole video about every Knick draft pick just not too long ago, and I think the Knicks just had all their eggs in that Stephen Curry basket that they didn't even scout anybody else. That's all they wanted. They knew what they wanted. They knew they wanted a guard. They wanted Stephen Curry. They missed out on him by one pick, and then they decided to just grab whoever they had next on the draft board.
Here's that scenario happens because in our universe, Khan was the president for Minnesota.
Yeah.
Look, if you go back at that draft, and mind you, Jordan Hill is an atrocious pick, but he was scouted to be a top 10 pick. He was scouted well in advance to be a top 10 pick. And Minnesota was in that unique position of picking, what was it, 4 and 5 or 5 and 6? I don't remember what the number was, but it was
high up there.
It was one of those two, but they're back to back.
Yeah, they had Rubio and Flynn.
And instead of picking, because you know Stephen Curry has the ankle issue that they don't believe is healable at the time because it was the same injury that Grant Hill had. And they know what happened to his career, so that literally reduced Curry's stock. Then you have Johnny Flynn, who was coming out of Syracuse on high energy. Ricky Rubio coming across from EuroLeague, being the youngest EuroLeague player.
He was just in the Olympics. He looked amazing.
And
the World Cup.
That's
World Cup.
Yes,
the FIBA World Championships. Yeah.
Yes.
And he looked amazing.
All these guards and his power forward. All Khan had to do was draft the guard which he wanted, which was Rubio.
Yep.
And then take Jordan Hill, and that pushes Jordan Hill out of the draft position. And the Knicks would have at least gotten Johnny Flynn at the bare bones minimum,
which would have been fine.
But instead, Khan does the worst move in general manager's history, and with the 4 and 5 or 5 and 6, I can't remember which one it is, selects Ricky Rubio and Johnny Flynn, both ball dominant point guards, first,
back to back.
It's incredible. I genuinely feel that with the injury to Curry. Mind you, I saw what Golden State's boardroom looked like when they saw that he picked Flynn with the pick. I saw that. They immediately erupted in jubilation. So who knows? But in all honesty, someone could have made the mistake of picking Flynn over Curry in that draft, as happened, and then he could have fallen to the Knicks. So no, instead we ended up with Jordan Hill. Thank you, David Kahn. But that's the curse of Ewing.
That's the curse of Ewing. The curse of Ewing. That is. This is your conspiracy that I firmly believe at this point. Explain what the curse of Ewing is.
Okay, so in the year 2000, the Knicks made one of the most disrespectful trades in sports history.
In sports history, 100%.
By trading Patrick Ewing for peanuts on the dollar for players who would never amount to anything in a Knicks uniform
or in the
any
NBA
capacity. Traded literally our only number one pick or first number one pick. And cornerstone franchise leader in points, rebounds, assists, blocks, I don't know, a couple other categories. He's in first place. Alright? And instead we traded him for absolutely nothing. Oh my god. What was it? Glenn Robinson was involved in this? I don't remember. It was horrible.
It was a 14 deal, 12 players got moved.
Mind you, Ewing wanted to stay, and he would have re-signed for the minimum to stay his Knick and retire Knick. But no, get out of here. And this disrespect led to what I believe is the curse of Ewing. Number 33, so it's at least a 33-year curse, is what I'm hoping. I'm hoping it doesn't add in all the time on those contracts that were passed around, because this trade involved like 4 teams and like 11 players. So if we have to tack on all those contract years too, then the Knicks aren't going to. But I won't see the chip in my lifetime. But 33 years of ineptitude, just bad rolls of the dice. It's the curse of viewing, just like the finger roll. We're so close, but so far.
What was that guy, Craig something, that like missed 4 layups in a row, getting blocked consistently? I think it was Game 6.
Yes, it was a playoff game.
That's gonna bother me. I was saying it earlier. I forgot his name though.
Yes, Smith. It was Charles Smith.
Charles Smith. He goes for 4 layups, gets blocked 4 times.
In the same position. All he had to do was pass the ball backwards. All he had to do, he was literally being triple teamed.
Yeah, he didn't he didn't have to do a lot to not screw up, and he screwed up. But the curse of viewing leads to an interesting segment of Knicks history where it just falls apart. Everything that made them special in the 90s, every player that they put together for a finals run just 2 years prior, disappears. You extend Allen Houston and his wonky knees for 6 years, $100 million. You lose Latrell Sprewell.
Game out of that contract.
Literally one. What was that? The floater against Miami?
No, that was pre-contract.
That was pre-contract. Okay.
He gets that $100 million post floater. You have a game where it's early in Stephon Marbury's tenure as a Knick too, where they face Dallas and it goes to overtime, and Stephon Marbury is going toe to toe with Steve Nash, and it's becoming a guard shootout back and forth. And in the final 30 or 40 seconds, Stephon Marbury breaks down the defense, breaks through Sean Marion and Steve Nash, opening up Houston for that corner 3, and he actually whams it. The Knicks ended up winning that game in overtime, which was fantastic. That's the only game he actually played on that contract. And it was a regular season game. It meant nothing else. It was just the fact that Marbury was new, everything was going around, and it was incredible.
So the curse of viewing leads into an era of ineptitude for the Knicks, which has been pretty consistent, which is pretty bad to say, and we end up looking at a pretty crappy string of years. Marbury gets them to the playoffs one time, and they have a decade where they miss it basically every single year.
Swept too.
Yeah, they got swept in the first round, and nothing ever materialized. But they always had a big move that was supposed to make them great, right? Yeah. Like the trade for Zach Randolph was one for me, right? Zach Randolph, 2010 guy, came from Portland. They just got Brandon Roy, so they didn't need him. Brandon Roy and LaMarcus Aldridge, which was a Knick pick. We just found out LaMarcus Aldridge and Joakim Noah were Knick picks that they traded away for basically nothing because they never kept their players. They always kept their guys on a swift timeline. They trade for Zach Randolph. Zach Randolph is trying the 2010 guy every day. 2010, pretty efficient. Like 48%. They keep him for 18 months. The next season, they start 8-5. They trade him with everything else.
But that's Mike D'Antoni. That's because Mike D'Antoni could not command the respect of that locker room. That was a good team. That was a much better team than what we ended up being at the end of the season.
Let's see who's on that roster. Let's pull up that roster.
You have Jamal Crawford. You have Zach Randolph. You had Jared Jeffries. You have Chris Duhon. Tony something. Tony Douglas? Am I bugging? It might be Tony Douglas.
I think it was Tony Douglas. So the Knicks start 6-3 on this season. This is the 08-09 season. This is pre-Amari, pre all these guys. Let's go games started, right? Let's go on the bottom side.
David Lee.
Yep. So 11 games in, you have Zach Randolph, you have Jamal Crawford. They both get traded. Nate Robinson, but he plays the full season. You have Wilson Chandler, David Lee, Chris Duhon, Q Rich, Al Harry. I like Al Harry. You always hated Al Buckets. You always hate. I love Al Buckets. Tim Thomas, Tiny Tim. That you hate him.
I hate Tiny Tim.
Can we discuss what we're doing with Obi? So much potential, but we barely played him. So we hit up on Obi a little while ago. We were talking about all the potential they had. We're pretty high on Obi. I think he really grew into what he can be in the second half of this season. You say he should be getting 30 minutes a night. I agree. I think he's a 30-minute player, potentially a little less, maybe like 26 to 30. But he's a guy that can go out there. He gives you high energy. He gets to the basket. He has elite athleticism. He plays decent defense, not great, but not bad. And he grabs boards.
Yes.
And he expanded his game. He's not just a cutter anymore. He's not just a dunking spot guy anymore. He's not just a screen and roller. He can screen and pop. He can hit the three-point shot now. Yeah, he can play a little off the dribble. He has a very good first step, especially if you catch him on a short roll. Phenomenal. I'm big on Obi. I think he's going to be great.
I'm looking at the Knicks in two ways. What my ideal lineup would be, and then what we know we're going to get because Thibodeau doesn't change his model. So you know what you're getting with Tibbs. And that means you're going to get 40 minutes of Randall for lucky 35. Let's be very real. We're going to get 40 minutes of Randall. That's going to take up a lot of that power forward position. Now, they're playing RJ Barrett out of position at the 3. He's too small for a 3, but he's so much stronger than the other 2s. And actually, you can see the difference in his game between year to year. He was more effective on those cutting layups and floaters 2 seasons ago as opposed to last season because he was so much stronger than other 2s. But at the 3 position, that strength advantage is kind of alleviated or differentiated with the other 3s in the league. But either way, you're looking at a position where now you have Cam Reddish on the bench, you have Quentin Grimes on the bench, you have Emmanuel Quickley playing undersized at the 2, not the 1. Where do you fit Obi into that rotation when you know you're getting that 40 minutes out of Randall, you know you're getting 30 minutes out of Mitch? You could play Randall and you could play Obi together and put Randall at the 5 and make him a stretch 5. You could get away with it.
I think you could.
And that team would run. It'd be great.
It'll be fast. Can you imagine that? That'll be really fast. You figure you have you can flip the 2 guard, but you have Brunson at the 1. You have RJ. You put Obi and Randall.
Brunson allows that to be a possibility.
That can be quick. Brunson is a very underrated passer, and I think that would be actually probably the most exciting, if not probably the plus minus darling of that team. Would be that incredibly fast paced team.
Yes.
The hard part though is Brunson is a really bad defender. He's going to get picked on a lot. You're going to have to find a way to switch a lot. And I think Brad Stevens had a phenomenal defensive strategy against that, trying to pick on a small guard. As soon as the person is getting thrown the ball, immediately run him off.
Yeah.
Like he did it to Isaiah Thomas. That's how he hit Isaiah Thomas. Isaiah Thomas is being posted up by somebody else. Immediately, he would have him run away as soon as that pass was getting thrown, and a bigger guy would run right behind him. RJ's big. It could work. I agree. It could be fun. I think the defensive shortcoming is a little high, and you would have to see it in action, but the offense would be explosive.
Yeah.
Because we said a second ago, Randall plays best with a really good passing guard.
Yes.
He has to have a playmaker next to him.
He needs to have someone who's going to set him up in a position where he doesn't have to think about the next move. It's what are my options? Go for it. And take literally 3 seconds. Melo, when you think about it, like Melo used to get the ball and stand there for 11 seconds.
I hated that.
And he would just hold
that one dribble immediate pull up. I hated that.
But he's in his spot. He's just whatever he does to get his chi centered, and then he makes this stupid shot.
I hated it so much.
But Randall wants to take that much time and then take a fadeaway that is well out of his capabilities. He needs to immediately pick to his spot, know where his zones are, hop step into them, whatever it is, Euro step into the lane, do what he does. But he needs to, and of course he's proven that he refuses to learn right hand plays. So that's where he really hurts you, in all honesty. So you have to be very mindful of that too.
Yeah, Brunson's defense is not as bad as Kemba. Kemba at this point, he's shot in the NBA. I think his career is basically over.
Yeah, but if you're looking about offensive efficiency, Kemba is a step above. So you're gonna lose.
No, I think you're kind of low on Brunson there. I love Kemba, but
Kemba had a couple of good games as a Knick this year. Mind you, he spent most of the year hurt. But the couple of games that he did go in, when he's on, he's automatic. Like he's very
that's been his career, but for now, right now, Brunson is absolutely head and shoulder to a better player than Kemba.
Right now? Okay.
Yeah. You're a little low on Brunson. Brunson, obviously, his stock is at an all-time high because of what he did to Utah. I think he averaged like 20-something a game against Utah.
He had a good series.
But he had a good season, too. He averaged, I think it was almost 17 a night. Behind ball dominant Luka. He can play off the ball.
Yeah.
And he has the opportunity to lead second units when your star is getting rest.
Yeah, but that Dallas system also has Spencer Dinwiddie facilitating too, so that kind of he's not going to have that.
He was a midseason addition though.
He's not going to have that this year.
That's true.
RJ's not the best passer right now, in all honesty. He's better when he's slashing. Yes, he definitely needs to get better with his court vision. They say Cam Reddish is a good passer, but again, he doesn't get on the court, so what's going on there?
There's got to be something that he's doing. I don't really follow Cam Reddish too much. Obviously, when he got drafted by the Hawks, I thought he was going to be really good.
Yeah.
And I thought he would actually blossom playing next to RJ because they played together. And they were both Duke players, right?
Familiar with each other.
I thought they were going to play well off of each other, and it just never materialized. I don't know what his issues are that make him not get any playing time.
Exactly.
But it's a little jarring for me.
Exactly.
The Knicks do have they're one of the hardest teams to predict. It was kind of like they're like the Bengals from last season. And I don't think they're gonna make the finals.
Yes, but we don't
get that twisted.
Anybody like Joe, like
Joe Cool. Yeah, Joe Burrow's amazing.
There's nobody on the Knicks that you can put next to this man.
But the reason why I say that is because at the beginning of the season, I was saying that the Bengals. Sorry to transition to the NFL, but the Bengals were a team that you would not be surprised if they lost to anybody. If they lost to the Lions on Sunday, yeah, that's about right. Yeah. And if they beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you'd be like, yeah, that's about right. Yeah. That's a team that can win to anybody and lose to anybody, and the Knicks are in the same boat.
Yes.
Drunk says it's been so long since he was good, bro. My stomach hurt when I think about the Knicks. The Knicks are it's a tough sell. It's a tough sell, but the fans are thirsty for it, and they're passionate about it. They love the team. They fight for the team, and this is why we were saying earlier, while we were out earlier today, they have such ferocity behind this franchise that it's amazing how they can continue to be bad. It's just they can't get behind one idea for a rebuild. A rebuild should take 5 years, and you should be bad, mediocre, okay, good, and then good. Like good or great, and then you find out on the 5th year, okay, this is something that we can build around. This is something that we can't do anymore. We have to rebuild again, rebuild. We saw it with Utah. Utah creates this system in 5 years. They draft Donovan Mitchell. Yep. They make the playoffs. They make the second round. They lose they lose the first round 3 years in a row. They make the second round 2 years ago, and then they lose again in the first round. Hey, this is our cap. We got to rebuild it again.
Yep.
Like that's how a rebuild should work. The Knicks try to expedite it every single season. Bengals had a superstar potential talent. They did. And hopefully the Knicks can find a way to bring one on board, which is what you were just saying. Like the Knicks don't have any player the caliber of Joe Cool, which is 100% true. But they can still be exciting. They don't have to be horrible. They don't have to miss the play-in tournament by 10 games. Yeah. That is where, I kind of draw the line on our minimal expectations for the Knicks. Because they have a lot of talent. They won 42 games in a shortened season. 42-30. That's a phenomenal record, right? That's a really good record for a team that had no expectations. And then they immediately fall apart. A lot of it came to blowing big leads. They beat NBA history. They became the most losingest team with a 20-point lead in NBA history. I believe it was 8 games or 6 games.
It's another Knick record.
They had the NBA record, or not NBA record, but they led the NBA in games lost where they had a double-digit lead in total, which was like 20 games. Yep. That's crazy.
I watched them all.
I hate being mediocre good. I want to tank or go to the finals. That's the problem with the Knicks.
Yes, here's the thing. Like you said, there's the 5-year system where you see what you're doing, where your potential is, and moving forward. The Knicks have had 20 years plus of ineptitude and poor decision making and poor drafting, and they've consistently. The Knicks need open heart surgery. It's been dead for 20 years. You understand? It needs to be opened and dissected and pulled apart and reassembled. Instead, the owner gives you band-aids and says, seal it up and we'll try again. And seal it up and we'll try again. And band-aids don't do it anymore. You really need to invest into these picks and not moving forward, which is why I'm very hesitant with the Donovan Mitchell trade, because the names that came up, I don't think Obi should be moved. I think Obi's potential is too high. I think Obi's physical size, he gets an advantage against Donovan Mitchell. 6'1" shooting guards do not have long careers in the NBA. They can be exciting. They can be dominant in some scenarios. We've seen Allen Iverson do the most with the least. Yeah. But in all honesty, look at what happens to them over the course of their career. Once they figure it out and that jump shot is no longer automatic, or that first step is gone, which is usually what the case is, they have to evolve as a player. The only one that I've seen do it successfully is Derrick Rose. But Derrick Rose was great at that mid-game and getting to his spots and picking his positions. His athleticism wasn't his complete package. Yeah. There was so much craftiness going on.
He had to learn it, though. After his second knee injury, I think he had torn ACL first, and he tore his MCL or meniscus, and he missed another season. That was when he was like, okay, I gotta start, hitting these mid-range jumpers.
But he's the exception. He's not the rule. You don't recover. You don't come back. It's just that simple. He's the exception.
For Mitchell, I think he has a lot of talent because he's not just an explosive athlete. A lot of his game is predicated on the fact that I can beat you to the basket, and he has a 6'10" wingspan, so he plays at a bigger style than a 6'1" player should play. But he has a crazy good jump shot. He's a really underrated passer. He only averages, I think, 5 assists a game. But I did a lot of research into it with my Donovan Mitchell story that I posted on YouTube as well. His game gets better when he's not playing with Gobert, because Gobert has horrible hands. So I was mentioning it earlier. His hands are atrocious. He fumbles everything. You pass him the ball and he drops it. He doesn't know how to just grab and dunk. Like you see Mitchell Robinson, you catch him on a roll, he's throwing that. I was gonna curse. He was throwing that junk down. It's gonna go into the basket. He's gonna dunk it. Rudy Gobert takes a step.
His teammate potential, because he was playing with Joe Ingles. He was playing with
Mike Conley.
Love
Mike Conley.
You have guys who can score, and instead Mitchell, I've watched a lot of him where his possessions are almost like Kobe Dwayne Wade-ish. I'm going to suck the defenders out, and then I'm going to take this shot that is incredible difficulty, and then hope my teammates to grab rebounds. And then on the kickbacks, that's where Utah was really catching up. Joe Ingles on a 3-position kickback because everybody's out of position, and Rudy Gobert is fighting for rebounds 2-on-1. And then this is how Utah stayed consistent all year, and a lot of it, Donovan Mitchell wasn't his decision making wasn't there for me in terms of what they're looking to say and what they're packaging him for.
That's also
marketing him as.
That's also a coaching problem. Quinn Snyder is a great coach. I think he's a good leader. He's a guy that can do a lot, but he has a cap on him when it comes to offensive ingenuity and holding his players accountable. And like part of what's been coming out, especially in the Utah camp right now, has been that they were lacking a leader pretty aggressively. Like they didn't really have a good like focal leader in the locker room. Part of it was like Gobert and Mitchell consistently calling each other out. All the news that came out after Gobert gave everybody COVID and shut down the league was Mitchell was upset. He should have won Defensive Player of the Year that year. All that stuff came out. Oh, Mitchell hates Gobert. Mitchell didn't say a word. Stay quiet. Yep. Like if that happens and you're a leader of your team, no, that's my guy. Like even if you don't like him, you don't like him. You got to say that. Like if you want this to work.
I mean, he did spread COVID.
He did. He gave Donovan Mitchell COVID, and obviously, like I wouldn't have wanted to have it back then either. But I'm a leader of this team. I didn't die when I had it. He never even mentioned it. It was we're years later. We're 2 years in, and he never even said, hey, Rudy Gobert's my guy. This is like I'm not mad at him at all. Like where are you guys getting these reports? Even if you have to lie, you got to do it. You got to shut the media up, and you got to act like that's your best friend.
Noise.
Exactly. If you don't do that, it creates a bigger distraction, and that kind of ties into how much a player is worth for me.
Donovan Mitchell also could have averaged an alley-oop a game to Gobert with the amount of screen rolling they play. They didn't even get near that. So
he has bad hands.
Put the ball where he doesn't. You're supposed to be this excellent marksman. Put it where his bad hands can put the ball in the loop.
No, but that's like when he grabs the ball, it just like falls out. I have a whole compilation.
Like a troll, like his fingers just don't work.
Yeah, just like they don't bend. So like when he grabs the ball, he's like palming it like a 1950s basketball player. Jesus. He's playing with his ball. Bro, it's bad. I have a whole compilation of him missing catches. And it's pretty atrocious. Like he grabs an offensive rebound and they just poke it out of his hands.
5 picks, your whole future. So.
Yeah, 5 picks and 5 players.
Yeah,
absolutely crazy, insane. So let's talk about the glory days. Go to the glory days real quick. You witnessed more of it than I ever could have because you grew up, 80s baby. So you saw all those amazing years that the Knicks had. The Game 7 against Jordan. You saw Game 7 against the Pacers.
Yeah, I saw that with Grandpa.
So an amazing series. Like, what was it like being a Knicks fan back then?
Well, you have the spirit of a child, so they're very, very exciting, of course. And back then, you didn't get instant sports like you do today.
Yeah.
So you had to wait till the weekend, or you had to wait till playoff time. Back then, if you were lucky, because we didn't have cable, you would watch the nationally televised game. And like now, the nationally televised game are a schedule. Back then, there was your local televised game, and then a nationally televised game that was scheduled. So there were always 2. So you get the Knicks on the first game, and then you watch the West Coast game on the second game. Either way, you would only get limited opportunities to really see the game. So it was always a big deal when we were growing up to watch these games. So it was instant for me.
MSG Network wasn't around?
It was, but we didn't have it. We didn't have it.
Oh, okay. It was like extra. It was like premium?
Yeah, we used to have regular TV.
You had to catch the ABC 7?
We got cable in like 1998. So think about it. I started watching in 94.
So you figure you call it like what was it called? The NBA on NBC.
Yes, exactly.
Those games? Yeah, okay. I remember those.
Yeah, that one on Sundays.
I remember that. Okay.
Yep. It was so rare that I would record them and then watch them. So yeah, going way back. But yeah, so because of that, the Knicks games became special. So, and then first time I touched basketball, everybody was a Knicks fan in New York. Yeah, everybody had to be. So, and for me, like I was always big on John Starks. Patrick Ewing, of course.
Yeah, you love John Starks.
But John Starks was always the guy, and he made me want to play. So, and watching him play with his wild, reckless abandon and his heart on his sleeve, it was instant for me. But then Charlie Ward too. Charlie Ward's one of my all-time favorite players. Watching him run that point guard position for that team, we were some of the most inefficient offensive teams ever, but some of the best defensive teams as well. And he quarterbacked that at the point guard position, and he was incredible to watch.
What was the best iteration? Oh, Charlie Ward also. That's the one. No, Chris Childs is the one that uppercut Kobe.
Yeah.
I was gonna say because Charlie Ward and Starks never played together because they got traded for each other. What was the best iteration of that Knicks team? Because you had the 90s, like the or mid 90s Knicks team with John Starks, Patrick Ewing, Charles Oakley too, and then you have the later version with Allen Houston, Latrell Sprewell, and aged out Patrick Ewing.
Well, I have a very special place for that 94 team because that was the first season I started watching. Mm-hmm. So I saw the Derek Harper acquisition and watched Derek Harper, and he immediately became one of my favorite players to watch. He was awesome, the old man. Either way, the best team was that 99 team was incredible. Literally, from Latrell, and mind you, we actually saw the Knicks play that year for the game that Golden State came to play at the Garden. Dad took us to see that game because John Starks was his favorite player.
PJ still there? Was PJ Carlissimo still the coach when they got choked?
I want to say yes. I don't remember the coach. I think he might have been. It was at that same season though, so possibly.
Snap. Okay.
But I remember because it was John Starks' return game to the Garden as a Warrior, and then John Starks ended up hitting a half-court three to seal the second quarter in that game. And then the Warriors steamrolled us. We only played like 15 to 18 minutes. But still, I was there for that. But that season, that Knicks team was amazing. We also, that same year, they did the All-Star Weekend in New York, and we were able to do the backstage for that event as well. I got to watch young Kobe, young Shaq, all of them come to the Garden that year at the... what did they call it back then? The jam session, the pre-jam session for All-Star Weekend. And you see the teams run their drills, and there's all these games and amenities. It was pretty cool. But that 98 season, that 99 team and that season was incredible. And that team, look, when I play 2K, if I can play competitively with that team, that's the team I'm picking. And you can pick any team you want. This Knicks team is going to give me trouble. Allen Houston is a cheat code. Latrell Sprewell could do a little bit of everything. Underrated defender, strong finisher at the rim. Patrick Ewing,
he was a beast.
Could hit 22 feet with ease. You get him in the right spot. Patrick Ewing was an automatic jump shot. And in a video game, of course, he's on God mode, so he's unstoppable.
Yeah, and his rebounding was crazy. Down. His positional rebounding was amazing.
Exactly. And his defensive IQ. He was consistently a 2-block-a-game
he was a good defender. Very good defender. All right, so we're going to round out the end here. The future for the Knicks looks all right. You got pretty good depth, a lot of young talent, a lot of young guys that are going to continue to get better on rookie deals. You have some expiring contracts. You still have a little bit of bad money in this year especially, but it doesn't really matter this year because you're not signing anybody else. Exactly. So, bad money right now in Julius Randle, potentially bad money in Jalen Brunson, depending on what he becomes. Evan Fournier, of course, that contract is atrocious, but still have a lot to work with. If you, how do you see this team performing this season without trades? Without trades. This is your roster going forward. Maybe you add like a mediocre piece. You're not getting a superstar. This is what you have for the most part.
Without trades, this Knicks ceiling is 6 seed.
6 seed.
Without trades, that's the ceiling, and that's being generous. I'm be honest.
Okay.
I fully expect them to be fighting for a play-in slot. The Knicks last year lacked consistency. They missed Mike Woodson on those second laps when these NBA games are in runs. And the Knicks will go off on an 18-0 run very quickly on you. And then they will allow consecutive 20-0 runs in some capacity, or 22 runs, whatever it may be. And they get blown out, and they just can't find the offensive touches, and that's where Thibodeau hurts you. He's not an offensive schematic coach, and this Knicks team needs guidance in certain categories. Mike Woodson leaving really hurts us in that capacity. And I see that being a problem again this year. Brunson, he's not a miracle worker. This guy is not a top 5 point guard in the league. Top 10 point guard, possibly. People can argue that. Top 15 more likely.
Yeah, top 15 sounds about right.
He's not completely game-changing the second he touches his team. So it's gonna take time. And his defensive liability is going to be very clear very early because he's going to get isolated. It's going to be, if it's a close game, expect to see those point guard plays and those pick and rolls where they're putting him undersized and then low blocking him and then just literally taking him out of the game and burning him out or putting him in foul trouble. So
you're looking at like a 45 win season? Think like a 45 win is their ceiling?
I think 45 wins is the ceiling. That's absolutely the ceiling. Yeah.
That's not a bad record for the team though. with trades, because they have the Knicks are loaded with assets. I know people keep throwing like the Heat in there when it comes to like trading. I'm sorry, you're not trading Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero for Kevin Durant. That's not a trade. That doesn't exist literally anywhere. Your 3 first-round picks. That's literally theft. That's like the trade override button that you can put on in 2K. Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero, and anybody else not in that big three, which is Bam, Lowry, and Butler. You're not. It's not happening. It's not going to happen. Your 3 first-round picks aren't even that valuable because they're going to be bad picks. They're going to be they're basically second-round picks. They're going to be back end of the first round because your team's going to be great. Yeah. So the Knicks and the Thunder are probably the 2 most desirable places to trade with. So if anybody's looking to move on from a star, maybe like a De'Aaron Fox becomes available. Maybe because Sacramento figures all that's gone. Maybe Toronto wants to fully embrace their rebuild and they want to move on from Fred VanVleet, who's pushing 30 now, and they want to build around Scotty Barnes. Maybe one of these other rotation like teams around the league that are like doing all right, but they're kind of middling. They're not going to beat anybody. They're looking to move on from one of their really, really good starter caliber players. The Knicks are up there with the trade assets that would be required to land them. Where do you see your Knicks playing if they're able to land one of those not really game-breaking players, but a really good player that can probably change your fortune? What everybody thought Kemba would have been.
Yeah. Look, Donovan Mitchell coming in. If they don't cut the team, we don't lose Obi. He pushes the Knicks ceiling. It's not a joke. His offensive capabilities are going to be something that will become a problem in a 7-game series. You have to deal with him in some capacity. And the rest of these Knicks around him, the ones that will stay, are good at chasing loose balls, filling in the seams, not requiring the ball to be effective in players like Quickly, who's great at second chance buckets and getting into those 18 to 15 foot without those high bounce shots that rim off. He's great at picking those up. Obi Toppin's great at picking those up. Mitchell Robinson is a vacuum cleaner. This guy sucks in everything that comes his way when it comes to offensive rebounding and on the defensive end. He goes 2-on-1 sometimes. So, I don't know. Look, I think 45 wins, 6 seed. Trading, who you're looking at, who's available, and that's the other side of it. Who are you really moving in terms of pieces?
Maybe
they missed on Malcolm Brogdon. They should have made that move.
Brogdon would have been huge. I'm big on Brogdon.
That was a massive swing, a miss. I hope they swung, but super miss with Devontae Murray from San Antonio.
Yeah,
he would have been an immediately better player.
And you had an immediately better trade than the Atlanta Hawks offered.
Yes,
significantly better.
100%.
So
if John Collins is available, I'm looking at him too. And now with a player like John Collins and what Atlanta has in terms of their picks left over at this point, because they've done a couple of trades where they're starting some picks too. I think that with that, you could start looking, and maybe we can discuss a player like Obi with the potential there, because John Collins plays the same position and is more effective. John Collins is very good, and what he does off the ball really helps Atlanta. He doesn't get enough credit for it. Everything goes to Trae Young, but he's the catalyst for a lot of these Trae Young plays, and he doesn't get the credit for it.
Yeah, because he stretches the floor. Yep. He's a dangerous rim runner, so you can't even take your eyes off of him. Because if he gets behind you, he's gonna get a crazy alley-oop.
Yep.
He's crazy athletic. This is a 20-10 guy. Yes. He's not, what did he average this year? Like 19-8, 19-7.
He also gets that. He reminds me of Dwayne Wade on offensive possessions, or when he gets defensive rebound. Because Wade was great at grabbing those boards and immediately outlet passing right to whoever was in the center, whether it was Chalmers or LeBron. He reminds me of that, where he's consistently doing that, getting the first right outlet pass to allow Atlanta to do what they do and run that game and run down your throat like that. So he's good. John Collins is fantastic.
John Collins is very talented. And if that's a sneaky pick.
Toppin can get that into his repertoire in terms of setting up the offense, I think you'll be able to pair him with Randall at this point, because Randall's going to appreciate that part of it and be able to run and get to his spots. And now Obi Toppin's going to command the defender. And it's going to open up some game for him. It's not going to be focusing on getting double teamed so much with their 2 best defenders. I think it's a lot of potential there.
It might logjam the front court, though, because now you got Randall, Obi, and Collins, unless you're moving one of them with them.
No, I would have to flip.
You have to flip Randall, right?
If we could get away with Randall, absolutely, but they're going to take Obi.
They're not going to take Randall,
They're going to take Obi.
They're going to take Obi.
It's going to be too easy for them.
The Randall piece is going to be rough.
Yeah.
But
we're stuck with him until that contract is done, or until he decides he doesn't want to play here anymore. It's that simple. But for what he provides, the guy still plays hard. He's putting up 23 points a game. He's consistently in that 7 to 9 rebounds. He's in that 4 to 7 assists. He's effective. His issue is his IQ, his decision making.
And it gets worse when he gets angry.
Yes, and when he gets frustrated, then he becomes an issue. He really does become detrimental to the flow of the game. but you have players in his same position who can produce and have produced in limited minutes. He has to learn how to play off ball a little more, and I think he should start consider playing at the 5. Mitchell Robinson is consistently in that defensive, always in trouble on the foul take side. He got better at the end of last season, but if he can't stay on the court, slide it around to 5 and keeping Obi on that 4 and having that rim rocker running at the rim and creating chaos, it's going to open up the floor for him.
What if the Knicks decide to go, full heel and go nothing but big men? You got Obi, you got Randall, and you got Robinson on the floor at the same time. RJ playing the 2.
RJ at the 2. That team can actually be faster than they look.
Yeah, because Obi's a freak athlete.
Yes,
I think you could probably get away with him putting him at 3.
You would need Brunson, because now you have Brunson and RJ as your 3-point shots. And RJ's not a bad 3-point shooter. Randall's not a decent. He's a mid 3-point shooter with 28%. I want to say last year.
No, he was a little higher than that. I think.
Randall.
Yeah,
I know he regressed last year.
Yeah, he regressed aggressively last year. But let's see what we got. Julius Randle for 3 shot. 30%.
30.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah, so he regressed. So, but between the 3 of them, Randall being the third 3-point shot option, Obi can hit the 3. These guys running, that's a scary team. That's a scary team to face for 25 minutes because they're gonna wear you out.
For my guy Drunk here, just want to point out some Obi Toppin stats since I'm big on him too. His last game of the season, he played 40 minutes against Toronto. He put up 42 points on 57% shooting, 6 of 14 from 3, so that's 43% roughly, with 10 boards. So absolute monster. Game before that, 38 minutes, he got 35 points, shooting 64% from the field, 6 of 9 from deep, only 4 boards though. They lost in Brooklyn, 43 minutes, got 19 points, 7 of 13 from the field with 5 boards. Orlando, not good competition, but 35 minutes, 20 points, 8 boards. And then a game against Cleveland, another loss, 31 minutes, 20 points, 50% from the field, 100% from the free throw line, which is incredible.
Also,
4 boards, 4 assists.
3-block game.
He has to use that as athleticism for, effort plays, but he can definitely do it. He has a talent. But honestly, I think the Knicks are going to be my sleeper team to make the playoffs this season. After missing it by, I think it was 10 games.
They're a playing team. The East,
I think they can sneak the 6.
East is too loaded.
Top of the East is way too loaded. Yeah, you have the top 5 teams if the Nets don't get rid of KD already set. The Bucks, the Heat, the Celtics. Yep, Celtics. You got the Nets and the Sixers. Guaranteed 5 teams. That's 1 through 5. Yep. If one of them gets injured, they might fall back. I'm big on the Cavs. Have you watched Evan Mobley?
Now that's where we have trade potential. Darius Garland,
Colin Sexton. He should be available.
Is he a restricted free agent?
He is.
There should have been a talk with Colin Sexton before we made a deal with Brunson, if you ask me.
I think there probably should have been. The problem is he's coming off of, I think it was a torn ACL or MCL. He blew his knee.
Okay.
He blew his knee, so he's coming off of a rather bad injury.
Cleveland's gonna be a problem next season. That puts now you're mid tier for the NBA for the East Coast. You have Atlanta. You have Cleveland. Chicago played good almost all season, almost all year, and then fell off at the very, very, very end, and that was because of injuries. That's already 8 teams.
Yeah, you're missing Lonzo and Caruso.
Who else am I?
Yeah, Charlotte.
Charlotte's gonna fall off. Charlotte's gonna be competitive.
Well, they lost Miles Bridges.
They lost
Miles Bridges.
Yes.
That's a big loss.
Orlando's gonna be at the bottom like they've been for the last couple of years. No surprise.
Yeah.
Toronto is in rebuild, and they have pieces to move.
They were really good last season too.
Yes, they have pieces to move though.
They're gonna be a seller.
OG Anunoby.
I like him.
Looking at. He's a player that he fits in any system.
The Blazers have been trying to get him for a while now. We've been trying to get him for like 2 years. I'm a Blazer fan. As a Blazer fan, I would love to get OG, and but the asking price is a little steep right now. Obviously, the trade market is broken with the Gobert. Gobert ruined it. He played defense on the trade market. It's crazy. This guy plays defense on everything. he can shut down. He can shut down everything.
Yeah.
He shut down the entire trade market is gone now because of Gobert. But there's a lot of potential for moves. There's a lot of potential for your future. This team, honestly, is a little exciting. I'm going to watch a lot more games for them this year. One of my, can't have League Pass in New York, but we'll do what we can.
I have MSG Network to go, so I watch it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I have websites. But all right, we're gonna call this a stream. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for stopping by, talking about the Knicks. Hopefully you guys learned something today. Maybe you have some opinions. If you do, put them in the comments below. I'll try to answer them in the comments with you. I do plan on answering comments in the end of the next videos accordingly, going forward too. So once again, thank you so much for watching. I'm Anthony Mero.
Jesse.
And I'll catch you guys next time.
Take care.
There you go. That's it.
Dope.